services that care presented by د.عماد خوجه, the head of emergency departments مع الفصل, associate professor in emergency medicine at عبد University. We have an American board of emergency medicine from Washington University. We have also an American board of medicine quality improvement. Washington University. We have also a master degree of business administration from Washington University. Looking for a presentation. Thank you guys for attending today. My name is خوجه. Dr. Yahya was just commenting on all the letters next to my name. So I was explaining to him. MD is my medical degree. MBA is my business, my Master of Business Administration. CMQ is Certificate of Quality. FAAM and FAAET. Those are the fellow of the American Academy of Emergency Physicians. So today I'm going to be presenting to you how to improve quality medical care. I'll try to give you a guideline or a pathway on how to improve the care in your department in a structured way. Hopefully it's going to be easy, simple, and easy to understand. So my objectives for today, we'll start by talking about how to start a QI project, and then I'll introduce you to some of the tools that you could use in your implementation. Before I start talking about quality, there is this big discussion in quality in general, whether you need to pay money to improve the quality, like do I need to pay more money to improve the quality of my care, or do I need to improve quality to decrease the cost of my care? So the easy answer is spend more, you get a better quality, which is not true in most of the time. Yes, if you spend more, you get a better quality, but there will be a lot of waste. A true quality project is a quality project that improves your cost, especially in a business perspective and in the healthcare. So if you do a very well-structured quality project, your costs should go down. For example, you really work hard on decreasing the rate of complication after surgery. Your overall cost will go down. Your quality is improved. If you work really hard on decreasing the contamination of blood culture collection, you will prevent downstream infection. Your cost is going to go down. Your quality will improve. So a true quality project should decrease your cost. Okay. So let's start in a stepwise approach on how to start a quality improvement project. First step, choosing a project. That might sound very simple, but maybe a lot of people struggle on how to choose a project. As a general rule, this is the impact chart. So if you look at this 4x4 table, you have urgency goes up this way and impact goes up this way. You have a project with urgent with high impact, and you have projects who are not urgent and low impact, and then the urgent low impact, not urgent high impact. Ideally, you want to be in this square, so try as much as you can when you're deciding on which project to start in your department or in your facility. Look for the high impact, high urgency project.
I prefer this one.
Sometimes you don't find the high impact, high urgent. Which one is it? You want not urgent, high impact? Yeah, so this is the second choice. If you did not find something that's urgent, like for example, nowadays a few days ago we were talking about accreditation. Accreditation is a high impact with a deadline project, so it was an urgent, high impact project. So you want to dedicate all your resources to that project. And then, right now, the application is in the back burner, so you work on other projects that don't have a very solid deadline. Another way on deciding on the impact. So this is a tool. This is published in JCO, Journal of Joint Commission of Quality Improvement. So they call it the clinical campus. The clinical campus measures a project from different perspectives. So you look at the project from a functional perspective, a clinical perspective, cost, and then satisfaction. The more you hit in these areas, the higher the impact of your project. So if you want to decide whether my project is high impact or not, and you cannot tell, so look at those elements. If we apply for in the accreditation, for example, so accreditation, we hope it's gonna lower our mortality and morbidity. Cost is not that much, maybe indirect saving. Satisfaction, it should increase your satisfaction. Functional, accreditation usually improve the functional effect on the patient. So I would consider this is a high impact project. So this is one of the tools that you could use in deciding whether this project is high impact or not. During my presentation, I'm going to introduce those tools to you. A good resource is to reach out to our quality department. This is what they do on day-to-day basis. They can help you with these tools, and they can give you more data and more in-depth analysis on each tool. So I'm just going to give you a teaser. So next step, after you decide what project you're going to do, now you want to understand the issue. How do you understand the issue? This is where the quality department comes in. These things, they sound simple on paper, but execution needs someone who's expert in quality. So how do you do it? You start with a flow chart, or what we call process mapping. This is an example of an admission flow chart. So you want to identify the process. You start with patient arrived, is he eligible or not? Yes, no, and then you lay out the whole process. Once you lay out the whole process, it will be very easy for you to detect a bottleneck in your flow. One example that we had in ED here in Bخش hospital is the flow of patients. When we mapped the process, initially the problem was physician staffing. So we found out that the patients are waiting a long time in the waiting room, and when we did a root cause analysis, it was staffing of the physician. And this is what we worked on for the past year. We saw that our numbers have got better. Now, for example, the bottleneck is nursing staffing. So this is going to be our challenge for the next phase. But that's putting the flow chart will help you visualize and understand where the problem is. This is another way of looking at the problem. It's called fishbone. Why do they call it fishbone? Because it looks like a fish skeleton. So this is the main bone, and then those are the branches. This is a process map. It's for dead discharge. So you have a late discharge. Instead of mapping the process, you put all the stakeholders. So one of the stakeholders are providers, one insurance company, facility, members, and then you put down each role, each task that this person has, and then you look at it. You could identify easily what's the cause in our facility. So, for example, here we have insurance company is a very big problem for us in this one. Other tools, affinity diagram. You can do a brainstorming session, a Pareto chart, histogram, bar chart, scatter diagram. Those are pictures of those stuff. This is a bar chart, admission numbers on day of week basis. This is a very good chart looking at the impact, which one has the highest impact on patient count. This is the lab test per day, and so on. So in this state, I would highly recommend that you work closely with the quality department. We have a very good quality department in the hospital, Dr. Manal, Dr. Amal. They will help you build those models. Those models will help you understand the issue of your department. After this, implementation. This is where where the meat of your work comes in. If you do all the steps above right and you fail in implementation, the whole project is done. So implementation, what you want, I'm going to spend a decent amount of my talk on some of the models here. So what you want to do is you want want to follow a model. One of the very common problems that people does is you start doing improvement project haphazard, and you don't know which one is causing you the impact. You are seeing some changes, you don't know which one caused the change, and you don't know which one you sustain, and you don't know which one to cancel or is not causing an impact, and all of a sudden you find yourself is lost in the middle of doing improvements, and the bill will start. So what are the models? There is no quality talk complete without talking about Lean and Six Sigma. Lean and Six Sigma, I'm just gonna explain them to you. Those are not things that you could apply yourself alone. These are projects that should be adopted by the hospital. Like a whole institution will adopt this mindset or this kind of thinking. But no quality talk is complete without mentioning Lean. So let's talk about Lean. The concept of Lean started in the business industry. It started in 1990s by Toyota. And this what made Toyota Toyota. So what they did is, the meaning of Lean is a lean meat is the meat does not have fat. So you remove redundancy. Anything that distracts you from your primary goal, you remove it. So in Toyota, they looked at transportation. They canceled all the steps in that's not necessary to make a car. Inventory, any inventory that's extra than what you need, they have a time-in policy. Like you order parts on daily basis. Movement. So one of the common, let me apply it to you in an ED or in a hospital mindset. So motion, one of the biggest waste in a healthcare facility is movement. If you have the cath lab, for example, in the fourth floor, or the OR in the basement, and you're moving patients around, this is all waste, and this will delay your care. So motion is considered waste. Waiting time, we have a lot of waiting time in the ED. Patients is waiting for a bed, patient is waiting for a CT scan, patient is waiting for blood work to be resulted. And in our department in the ED, we're monitoring those numbers. So we monitor our waiting time, we monitor our total length of stay, we monitor our lab turnaround time, we monitor our radiology turnaround time. Overproduction, ordering too many parts, having too many central line kits in the department, having too many physicians in the department, having too many nurses in the department. Overprocessing. Overprocessing is very common here. If you want to do a CT scan, you have to call so many people that your brain is going to stop. Defects. Defects is more in Six Sigma. We'll talk more about in Six Sigma. Unutilized talent. You have so many. I'm going to give you most of my examples are from the ED because this is where I'm working. So one of the thing that caused me pain in the ER is we have EMS provided. Those people who they are trained in providing care for the patient outside, like they're transporting patients from the field to the hospital. It's mandatory for the hospital to have those people. Like it's not your choice whether to hire them or not. But we don't have a very active transportation system in the facility. Most of the patients they come in by red person, and we have those EMS people laying around in the department. We're using them to do a visual triage. This is not a best way of utilizing people. You want to save your people for the task that they need. One of the good examples that we have in the ED is we started to hire ER specialists. Those people who did their medical school, and then they did the residency training in emergency medicine or the master in emergency medicine, and they became specialists. You don't need that specialist 24 hours of the day. Not all the patients in the ER, they need an ED specialist. So what we do is, we have two providers. One is a general practitioner, and one is a specialist, and they divide tasks. Usually the sick patient goes to the specialist who needs more intervention and more work. Simple cases will be in GP. So you want to utilize your talent to the maximum. And that's neat. So this is usually a culture of the hospital, like the hospital administration or the hospital quality department start applying lean management on all the processes in the hospital, and they'll start cutting costs. Six Sigma. Six Sigma is another big thing in quality, and you hear those terms. If you're familiar with quality or you did a quality project, you will hear a lot about Six Sigma and lean management. Six Sigma is established in the 1980s, and it was established by General Electric. The whole idea of Six Sigma is Six Sigma means six standard deviation. We have standard deviation 1, standard deviation 2. Six standard deviation is the Six Sigma. So the whole idea is that you want to lower your variation until the sixth standard deviation. And that's what General Electric goes by, and that's how they survive in the a lot of industries has adopted Six Sigma management. One of them is healthcare. Healthcare, what you want to do is you want to have you want to decrease the variation in the management as much as you can. For example, if we're going to do appendectomy, you want to do the same procedure, same steps for all the patients, regardless of who's the provider. This will minimize complications, will minimize bad outcomes. The more consistent the process is, the more productive or the more quality you have. It could be difficult to standardize care in medical care industry, but if for a patient, but if you do it in a process perspective, then it will make more sense. Like if you want to admit the patient, you want the same process applies for each patient. So those are the two big concepts. Does anybody know who this? No, Dr. Yahya? You're very old. Not very old. هذا كريم عبد الجبار. No one knows Krim Abdul Jabbar? Muhammad, you know him? No basketball fans here? So, huh? Yeah, he's a basketball player. So Krim Abdul Jabbar is a legend in basketball. He is one of the big names in Laker is a famous team in LA. So this guy was the legend, and they interviewed him one day. They told him, Kareem, what took you to the level that you have right now? Why do you have this reputation? Kareem Abdul Jabbar is a guy who doesn't do flashy work. Unlike Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan got famous because of his flashy moves, the way he dunked the ball. Kareem Abdul Jabbar, he scores this way only. And now he's an educationist. He became a teacher and he gives educational talk. And they told him, what made you so famous? He said consistency. They scored. This is how he scores. Scoring hand away from the opponent, and he's tall, so he throws the ball over the opponent. And the way he calls it the skyhook. It's a very famous way. This is his way of scoring, and he does it consistently. And every time he does it, the ball goes in. And he said, what made me so famous is consistency. I did this every day, every night, 24/7, 360 days of a year, and that's how I became what I became. So consistency will give you a very good quality. Okay, so this is the meat of my lecture. So if you're not paying attention to the whole lecture, this is where I want you to pay attention. This is this is the biggest slide of my talk. So what you could do today in your department is apply a PDSA cycle. A PDSA cycle is a model that's very simple that you could do tonight in your department or today in your department, and it's a very effective model. I've been using this. I was on charge of quality in doing my years with the US, and we teach this to all the residents who graduate from the residency program, and they don't graduate until they do a project applying their PDSA cycle. One of the concepts that's underutilized, that sounds very simple, but believe me, there are so many people that they do it wrong and they don't see an impact. If you do this model correctly, you will see the impact of your work. So it's a very simple, it's a cycle. You start by 4 steps: plan, do, study, and act. Planning phase, this is the most important step of the project. So what you want to do is you want to state your objective based on the steps that we mentioned before, and then make a prediction and plan how to measure it. So a key thing is you need to know how to measure your project. If you want to improve something and you don't know how to measure it, and you don't do that in your plan part, your whole cycle is gonna fail. So after you plan it, then you do the project. So you carry out the intervention that you decide and implement the intervention. After that you study. So you re-measure again and see what is the impact of the intervention that you did. And then in the last step you act. If it's a change that you like, then you make it a standard. If you don't like, then you scrub it. Let's take an example. So I'm working in the ED. I see a lot of contamination in my blood cultures. So what I want is to fix. This is my planning phase. I want to work on the contamination rate of the blood culture. This is my problem. How am I going to measure it? I'm going to measure it by measuring the blood culture contamination rate over a month or over a week. So this is my measurement. And then I'll decide on what intervention do I do. Wallahi, I decided that the nurses are the way they're doing the scrubbing is not effective. So I'll do a teaching course for them on how to do scrubbing of the site. And then I'll execute. I'll go to do first. You execute, you do the course, and then after you finish the course, you do the study. Now I measure the blood culture contamination rate. Did it go down? If it's yes, then you act upon it. You make it a standard. Any nurse who gets into my department should take that course. If it's not, if it didn't work, then you go again to the planning phase. Okay, I still have a blood culture contamination rate problem. So I'll do another, in a planning phase, I'll do another intervention. Let's say we want to change the brand of the disinfectant. You do you buy the new brand. You start the implementation. Then you measure afterward. Do you see a decrease? No, I did not see a decrease. Then I scrub it off. Go to another plant. And the blood culture contamination rate, we did this in my residence. And we start going over stuff until we discovered that the contamination rate was high because of the ultrasound guided IV. So we do ultrasound guided IV. When they use the ultrasound, they don't clean the probe. So that was a problem. And then when we found out that the problem is in the ultrasound guided IV, we just ordered the cover sheet for those probes and problem solved. So that's how you do it. And you can do this in any context. Like for example, if you have a problem, any kind of problem, Ahmed, do you have any problems in your daily work? أي مشكلة تواجه أحمد؟ Okay, Ahmed بيقول أنا أوكي في problem. Ahmed بيقول ما بيلاقي موقف الصباح. So your problem is you don't have parking in the morning. So what do I think is the problem? I think is we need a security guard at the parking, so he prevents anyone who doesn't work for the hospital to get into the employee parking. How do I measure it? I'm going to measure it by seeing the occupancy of the parking over the day. And then you do the intervention. You measure afterward. We hired the security guard. Did the parking problem got solved? If it's yes, we will keep the security guard. If it's no, then we don't need a security guard. Maybe we need to have tags on the cars. And that's how you do the project. So any problem that you face, you start by clearly identifying the problem, find a good way of measuring how big is the problem, and then design your intervention. And this is how you build. So a cycle over a cycle over a cycle over a cycle, and then if you have an intervention that's successful, that does not mean you cannot continue the cycle. You can make it even better. You can decrease the contamination rate more. You can decrease the DBT rate more. So you can do cycle after that. One example of a PDSA cycle that was successful in the ED is here in Bukh Hospital is the admission rate. So we had a problem that we identified at the hospital the patient who comes into the ED, most of them they go. So that's our problem. patients are not getting into the hospital. Most of the patients are getting home. And now in the study part, we try to identify, well, is this because we have a low acuity patient? No, the acuity was the same. We have the same acuity as other facilities, so we should have an admission rate higher than with the one we have in Maine. So we decided to measure it by doing the admission rate. To measure the admission rate, I spent 6 months working on a module just to get that. When I came in here to the hospital, we did not have any way to measure anything. So you could start doing intervention, but there is no way to monitor those interventions, and there is no way to know whether those are successful or not. So we got Mr. Engineer Hassan Ibrahim. He and this is a good time to thank him. If you're listening, Hassan, I'm very thankful for it. So he built the model for us on how to measure to get data from the ED. And based on that data, we start measuring the admission rate. We found that the admission rate is 6% or 5%, which is very low in any hospital. So we start designing small interventions. One of them was to change the process of admission. One of them was to follow up on each cases, whether they were appropriately managed or not. And then you could see the impact. From July to October, we almost tripled our admission rate. And this is one of the nice success stories that you would see in an ED. And that triple of the admission rate will improve the quality of your care so much, and it will improve the revenue to the hospital. So that's a good example. Does anyone have any questions so far on this model?
ليش الهيكتيك كان كده؟ يعني يمبروف بعدين دروب بعدين go hectic بعدين comes down again.
A drop down was because I went on vacation and I was.
I remember that day.
Oh, you remember that day?
لكن أنا فاكر إن جالسين في جون نشتغل مع بعض بعدين went to vacation بعدين everything went away.
Yeah, nobody was following the project. But now, alhamdulillah, even if I'm not there, it's sustainable. So that's why the drop is low. So I don't know why the drop happened. Okay. So one of the things, this is the main of my talk, and essentially finish my talk. One of the things that I really want to comment on, and because I find that common problem here in doing quality, is asking for procedures and asking for pathways. Doing pathways and guidelines can help you, but you need to understand when to use it. When I came into the ED, everybody was telling me that you need to develop guidelines, you need to develop pathways. The ED department has a 46 pathway and guidelines, and nobody looked at those. And they are, like, if you read them, you do, I mean, it's very easy for you. If you see a problem, you'll tell everyone, well, we'll do a pathway and we'll do a guideline for it. Yeah, you need to be very conscious about those calls, because it's an easy answer, but it's not fixing a problem. Our guideline and pathways, they were printed from, this is a textbook. Nobody is going to read a textbook to know how to manage a patient. And some of them were completely off the chart. For example, this is the epistaxis management guideline in the department. If you look there, control the bleeding, first line, topical vasoconstrictor, ativan, cocaine. Nobody uses cocaine. And this is in a hospital guideline. So you need to be very careful when you ask for guidelines. Yes, they have their role. Yes, they have their part. If you have a process that you want to improve, for example, if you want to give people a pathway on how to do sliding scale, that's an excellent way of using a pathway or a guideline. But you cannot do it for patients. You cannot tell people, wallahi, this is the pathway on how to manage chest pain. Chest pain is different from one patient to another. You're not going to write a textbook for the doctor to manage chest pain. It's an easy thing to say, well, I'm going to fix a problem by writing a guideline or a way. But you need to be conscious about these things. Guidelines, whatever it used to be 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that you need guidelines in your department because there is no access of information. If I want to know what are the guidelines in managing stroke, if I don't have a textbook or if I don't have a reference in my department, I will not know how to manage stroke. Nowadays, nobody uses it. Everyone has a phone, and if you have a phone, you will access the latest guideline that's more updated than whatever you have in your department. And this is a message to Muhammad, please give us internet in the department. We don't have internet or Wi-Fi in the ER. Inshallah, but outside of that. Okay, any questions?
You're done, huh?
I'm done. At the question? At the end, yes.
They can chat their question if they like. If you don't mind, Dr. Ahmad.
Yes.
And I've been introduced to the concept of Lean and Six Sigma many times. They all coming from,
You want to
automobile. It's coming from industry, totally different from medicine. Where medicine is another huge professional industry, even older than the automobile industry. And I show the application or the implementation of those concepts to medicine, it has its own positive impact. But take it religiously and make it the standard for the medicine and follow up the benchmark and KPI of those principle or theory in medicine. And in my opinion, I don't agree to certain point. يعني أنا أعطيك مثال. In some hospital we use KPI, for example, the total number seen by doctor in OBD, for example, or the total number seen by certain doctor. It's not always a positive value for the patient, neither for the hospital or the institution. Whereas if you take the institution as a whole and define the medicine in its goal and benefit for the community, you might produce much more better than using Lean or Six Sigma. That's in my opinion. But I still think they are valuable, but it's not important to apply completely in this.
Wallahi, I agree with you to some extent. One of the things, one of the things that people fail to understand in healthcare sector is that the healthcare industry is different than the other industries. What's on stake in the healthcare industry is not the same as the other industries. Healthcare industry is a service industry. You need to know what the patients want and what the patient needs. The hospital is not a factory. You cannot treat doctors or the healthcare provider as a machines or as tools that you apply numbers on them, and then you expect the outcome to be equivalent to whatever numbers that you make. There is a lot of factors in play, and you have to be as a leader in this institution. You have to be aware of those all factors. There is in the service industry in general, feelings and emotion plays a lot of role. I could see 100 patients in one session, but if I'm not giving them tender, caring, loving interaction, they will not come to you. And that's what some people fail in the healthcare industry to understand. Applying concepts from another industry from another industry to another is an excellent idea. And this is one of the discussions I had with one of my mentor in the US. He was sitting with me. He was like, "Ahmad," and that's what made me do the MBA. You know, if you look at the geniuses around the history, most of them they did not invent anything. Most of them they took something that was already invented and they applied it in a different context. And one example that comes into my brain is a basketball team. This is a famous story. Basketball, and there is a movie about it. Not basketball. It's baseball team. The team was at the bottom, about to bankrupt. They're failing. They're losing money. They hired a guy. This guy has a statistician. He's a statistician. He has a statistical background. They hired him because, and if you see the movie, it's called Moneyball. Because they thought that this guy has some experience. It was a random accident, why they hired. And this guy applied statistics on players. So they start measuring players, and he started giving them numbers on how many throws they have, how many pitches they get, and based on his numbers, he starts hiring players that no other team are looking at. So he picks a player that nobody thinks he's going to be successful, but based on his numbers and his throws, he hired. At that year, this team got bankrupt, and this became a standard in the industry. All the basketball industries are using statistics, and now all if you go to the US, all the sport medicine, sport industries, they're using statistics. This was a concept introduced by one guy who was a statistician, applied in an industry, and this became a standard. Same thing for those things. You don't take it, and you need to understand the context. You need to understand how to apply it. And that's why you need to understand the context. It's not like taking something and applying it here and expect a good outcome. So yes, I agree with you, and with some reservation.
في أحد عنده سؤال ثاني ولا آخذ راحتي أنا؟
The name of the movie Moneyball, by the way. If you want to watch it, it's on Netflix.
Do you have any more questions there? Look, another example of خليني أقول لك mismanagement in medicine. If you go to ICU مثلا, you find a lot of expenses goes to خليني أقول لك DNR cases fruitless or hopeless cases sometimes. We spend tons of money in this side. Whereas in the primary health care, which is very simple things, less money goes there. So that's another area of business in medicine. I totally agree with you. If you use those Lean and Six Sigma, we might allocate quicker resources here and there. But using KPI of those industries sometimes not what we have done.
And that's why when we started, if you measure the wrong thing, you get the wrong outcome. And you need to be careful about what you measure. If you want to decrease the blood culture contamination rate, you cannot measure the urine contamination. So you need to know what are you measuring in order to get the outcome. I mean, one of the examples in the US, and I was doing admin fellowship, and I was seeing the ED numbers. So the way they judge the departments for profit is they were using ratio. Yeah, if the ratio of your spending is more than of the revenue is more than what you're spending, they'll consider you successful. They'll pay you more bonuses, and this is a real life example. And they will give you more pay. So what happened is all some of the departments in the hospital, they start lowering their numbers. And wallahi, if you want me to have a ratio, إذا أنا أشوف 1000 مريض my cost is a certain number, my revenue is a certain number. لما أنا أشوف 10 مرضى, I can control my cost way better than patient, and my ratio will be way high. This damaged the hospital. They're not getting higher. Everybody is working on a ratio, and they're not working on the total number. Total number is going down. Yeah, and I'm seeing less patients, but my ratio is going up because I'm controlling it more. They took the hospital into turmoil. There was a lot of fight between the department. The wrong departments are getting the bonuses because they are fixing an issue. That issue was a wrong measurement for the whole institution. Yes, it makes sense when you decided to use it, but after all, it was the wrong thing to measure. But you need to be very careful on what you're measuring. You might measure a certain thing, but it will make sense at that time when you decide it. But you need to be aware, wallahi, if it's doing me a disfavor, I need to go and reconsider what I'm measuring. Maybe I'm measuring the wrong thing. But yes, you need to, and it's very dangerous if the person who's deciding those things, that CEO was hard, and the one who decided on the issue, and he almost got us into bankruptcy. They fired him and they got another CEO. So these kind of decisions, they're not a joke. If you make a wrong decision, you might take your whole institution into the ground. So whoever is making those decisions, he needs to be very mindful. He needs to study it very well. It will be very simple. Like it's a one click. Like in that click, it impacts a lot of things in the system. So yes, totally, and I totally see.
Well, I should know we should use multiple KPIs, like seeing the medical services from different angles. But we shouldn't really نقول لك والله الدكتور هذا كويس لو الKPI هذا كويس. لا, الKPI just like should be a guidance for the admin to serve the community better. Like I don't think it's wise for using only one KPI or two KPI and guide all this level is better than the other.
Right. That's why I was saying the healthcare industry is a service industry. A doctor might be excellent in the OR, he has different kind. Lakin his numbers, they don't look that good. How do you measure this? A doctor, his patient loves him in a clinic. They are coming to him from all over the place. But how do you measure patient love properly? And if you're going to incentivize that person, you need to incentivize them on the right thing. This is one of the things we faced in the ED. We started, and it's not nobody is you make mistake, and the thing is you need to know that you need to let go of your ego and move on and fix your mistake. One of the things that I started here, I started measuring total number of patients. Total number of patients, yes, it's an important thing. Yes, you need to work on it. Like in all of my interventions, they're not impacting the total number of patients. I mean, I know whatever intervention I do, it's not impacting the total number. The total number is the same. Total number is the same. The interventions were successful. The thing that we did, it made sense. But we're measuring the wrong thing. وأنا كنت بتعب مهندس أحمد معاي. الله أحمد سوين دعاية. Yes, that's how you increase your total number. But in the ED, it's very difficult to market an ED as a service. Yes, there is some limitation, but if you really want to improve the ED, you need to improve what I think we were successful in as a Michigan. Patients, they don't come to the ER because the ED, you could have an overall image of the hospital, that this hospital is a good hospital, so they'll come to your emergency department. But they don't come into IMAD for the ED. They don't come into the ED because Dr. Plan is there. Unlike the clinic, they'll come to Yahya because Yahya is there. They come to Dr. Ahmed because so you need to be aware of those things when you're looking at how to improve your department. Once we switch to admission date, and I'm not aware about the revenue number, but I'm assuming because you know those numbers more than I do. I'm assuming the revenue will come from the ER.
The complexity of the case change. يعني احنا we based أول شيء على admission to the OPD. يعني كان أغلبية admission in and out. They come for Lapuli and they go immediately for some. Now the case حقنا is more complicated. They stay longer and they have to stay. يعني عكس بقية المستشفيات they like to reduce the length of stay. لا احنا بالعكس complexity حق the cases is more
them before for the service that it's been doing. They're not staying for nothing.
Yeah,
which is a higher bill, a higher بس الكاب would be satisfied. يعني if you're a doctor يعني بطبيعة الأطباء بشكل عام يعني كأطباء we like to help people. If you give me work, you reward my work, وأنت والله you appreciate that what I'm doing. يعني كانوا يعلمونا حتى في الMBA إنه والله doctor you can manipulate them by working with their emotions. يقول والله إذا جيت أنا قلت له والله هذا عشان المرضى وعشان الكوميونتي he might do it for treatment. وده teach us this in business school. You know, if you're sitting with a doctor, try to play on his emotion, he will do whatever you want. But that's true. So when you have a busy hospital, you see a lot of patients, when you see an improvement on the patient that you saw, you will feel very satisfied, regardless of what else is happening in the hospital. And one good example is this. So now Ahmed and stroke. We did a stroke campaign. A guy came in. Plus his daughter saw the ad in the hallway. She brought her father. Her father got TPA in the ED at that time. We struggled to get ED in the TPA in the ED, and it was a huge fight. And I'm sure I bothered you a lot about the TPA at الطوارئ. There was a lot of struggle. Like one patient came, he got thrombolized. He came back normal. Everybody was satisfied. كل الناس اللي you fought with them, they felt wallahi I helped someone, I treated someone. From the nurses in the ED to the doctor in the ED to the neurologists that we bothered. Wallahi, and I thought they hate. Like after we saw one success story, everybody was sending me thank you messages. Without you, this would have never happened. You need to appreciate this in a healthcare facility. Yes, a reward that people get from complicated cases, from giving care to the patient is a bonus that you don't have to pay.
Thank you.
You can hear me now?
Yes, doctor.
Yes. Thank you, D.عماد, for this wonderful presentations and refreshing course about the various quality tools that we can use in our department. And actually, quality should be enhanced in each of ourselves. It's not only the quality view. Each one must have this at least idea about the importance and the need of this quality, and not necessarily the quality is very costly. Although we say that if you have to have good outcome, you must have at least 30% of your time, money to invest in the improvement program. However, if you apply these quality tools, selecting the quality tools is most important, because in each process, if you wanted to initiating, for example, a program is different from conducting, different from your searching for a solution for a problem. Each one of them have its own quality tools that can be used. Maybe you highlight the most important things. It's easy to be applied. Maybe the first time people can face that they didn't understand, but if you did one time with one of the quality people, next time you can really easily. Quality is, by the end, is just doing the right thing, right, all the time. This is what all in our medical field, so this is the definition of quality. And I think we all together we need to, after this lecture, we need to start really emphasizing, starting to applying at least one or two of the quality tools within our department. Tackling first the most important, changing 20% of our maybe process that have 80% outcome. better outcome. So this is one of the things. I just want to emphasize about this thing, and we have lots of success story in radiology, in ER, in many other departments that we started quality program, and now, for example, my technician in UK, when I came, I identified a phase of static quality images. Now, 100% of my staff changed, and I recruited newly graduated technician. Although with this, the quality of the images didn't drop, because we have our own quality program for the technician level, and all quality images that come from the X-ray technician are the same standard all over, whatever the technician was newly hired or expert has 20 years of experience. So this is equality. So it's easy, but we need to first to start doing it, take the expert help in the beginning, then you feel it, and it will show up your time and will reach your goal immediately. And thank you again for your comments.
يعطيك العافية دكتور علي. Very well said. And I want to again highlight مرة ثانية that these concepts are basic stuff. Anyone who do any kind of work should know about PDSS. Something that I told you guys, you need to go to quality department. Yes, those are advanced stuff, but the general information everybody needs to know. Or Dr. Rani is and I don't know if you guys know this about him or not, but he is on charge of the quality in the medical school in King Abdulaziz University. The future generation of doctors, their quality is his hand and his grip. ما شاء الله عليه الله يديم عليه.
شكرا لك.